Hello, this is Donna from Clever Crafting. Thank you for joining me again today. So I'm starting with a couple of little things. You can see I've got 6 pieces of that blue and white spotty paper. I actually cut that from a 12 by 12 inch piece. So I've got all of these papers and I'm not using them. So I cut them into a size that I can use. So that's a 4 inch by 6 inch. And of course, then I use my metric rectangles to cut them to the size for the front of my cards. And this is just out of some of my stash, nowhere near the amount of 12 by 12 papers that I have. And I've decided to cut them so I can use them. The other thing that I wanted to show you is this is how I store my scraps. So it looks a bit, well used because it is. So what I've got is these are foolscap size folders. And I've got the name at the top, what color is inside, and all scraps that pertaining to that color go in the bag. All right, so I've started with one of these spotty blue pieces. And this is a white piece. You can see that I've got my die already stuck onto it. This was just something that I had in my stash. And then I've got that larger blue piece, which was also in as one of the blue scrap bins. So I'm grabbing my metric rectangles here, which I use all of the time. And I am just using the third largest one to cut out of this blue and white spotty paper. You can actually fit the second largest one on, but this time I wanted to have a dark border around it. So I didn't have a piece of cardstock big enough, so I've used a white piece that I've cut out with the second largest metric rectangle. So it's a little bit bigger and we'll add a border. You can see here that I'm just showing you can use a finger dobber. You could also use a brush or any other blending tool. But I find that generally if I'm coloring the edges of my cardstock, it's easier just to go straight to the card with the ink pad. Now this looks like I'm using an awful lot of ink here, but I'm not. It's hardly any really, which is great. So it's not, interestingly, an exact match, but because I've got that blue spotty between that and the dark blue piece that I'm using behind my flower, it's fine. So you would have noticed that I was using the negative piece. What I'm doing now is I'm actually cutting the negative piece, and I'm sorry this is at the bottom of the screen. I just wasn't watching when I was filming, but I measured the length of my white scrap and I am cutting it into 3. Now, because my middle section is going to be in 2 pieces, I've measured from each end. In this case, I will try and put the measurements below if I remember to do that. But the measurements in this case doesn't really matter because it does depend what die you're using and it does depend on what size scraps you've got. In my original sample with these, my piece was wider. So, yeah, but I haven't used it. This was a thinner piece. It was the one I wanted. So I've popped glue over the back of that top piece and I am positioning it first, because everything needs to start from there. I did, of course, put everything on my dark blue piece before I glued anything down just to measure up. I just didn't keep that in the video. So now I'm going to just put the middle piece into place again. And I'm actually going to glue the bottom piece down onto there. So this is where I'm actually physically gluing it. And that's going on there. Now I've actually kept pretty much all of this in, I think, well, a good portion of it in, because then I'm going to glue the 2 center pieces. Now the reason that I do the top and the bottom first is because then I can make sure that the center piece has an even piece at the top and the bottom of it. Yeah, I just showed a small amount where I was gluing that, and you can see how that's come together beautifully. So I'm now going to use my my favorite happy birthday celebration dies. Stamps, and this is one of the dies that come in it, and I've actually stamped this, you can see on the piece where I've inked the edges, because I want to save the cardstock. No one's going to see that hole anyway. Then I had another little scrap of that blue left, and so I cut the larger circle that also comes in that stamp and die set to mount it, and I'm going to mount that on there. This is just a little bit of string, so I like the finer string. This is crochet thread that I picked up from Choice here in Australia. It's like $2.50 a roll. It's a big roll, but cheap as, and they got lots of different colors. And I'm just going to tie that off. Okay, so I've put some double-sided foam tape on the back of my feature piece, which has got the the dye of the flower on it. And you can see that I've left a gap there. That's because that's where my string is going to go through that section there, and I didn't want it bubbling up. So I've just, put the hole there with the foam tape, slap it on. This is such an easy card to make. I mean, the actual time it took me to make this card was under 30 minutes. So with the filming and everything, I think that's pretty good. So the Enjoy Today greeting that I've got, I'm just putting the foam on one side of it. Just make sure you put it on the right side, on the right edge, and then glue on the other edge, because I'm going to put that over the top of the frame. I guess we'd call it a frame that's holding my flower, and that makes a nice little card, nice little greeting. Could say anything. So just to finish off, I'm going to glue that onto my card base. Just slap some glue onto the back. I always use too much, so I decided to edit that out today. And we're going to pop that on to our card base. So nice and easy. You can see, you can't really see there, but I did end up tying a bow with that string. You don't need to have a bow. You can just have it in a knot. I'm just going to zhuzh that bow up a little bit, move it around, and that will have to do. And there we go. Here's our card. So, so nice and easy. I hope you enjoy making this one. So as always, I want to really thank you for spending time with me today. And I really hope that you've learned something and give it a go and use some stuff that in your stash. I'll put a link below to our Facebook book group. We'd love you to join and to share your creations. As always, I really appreciate you liking this video, and I'd also love for you to become a subscriber. Till next time, stay safe and happy crafting.